This recipe has been really popular in my recent book. They're jacket potatoes, but instead of using a regular potato, I'm going to use sweet potato. And it's filled with chorizo. But first, we need to cook our sweet potato. These are about 300 grams each, and they're going to take about 50 minutes to cook in the oven. I don't pierce them, I don't add any oil, they just go into the oven at 180 degrees. And you'll know they're ready when the outside is quite dry and it's really tender in the centre when it's pierced with a knife. Okay, while they're baking, we can get a head start on the filling. So 2 chorizo sausage. Chorizo sausage is Spanish sausage full of smoked paprika and garlic, and they're quite fatty, which is what I want for this because it's going to release some of the oils and flavour this quite intensely. So I don't want the skin on the chorizo, so I'm just going to cut 2 slits in the chorizo and we'll take the casing off. What we're wanting to achieve is a crumbled chorizo. So by taking most of the casing off, it's just going to be a lot easier. So I've got a dry pan over here and I'm going to break small pieces into the pan. And the little bits of fat, once it starts to cook, when I turn the heat on, it's going to become really, really crispy. So I'll turn the heat on now on a medium to low heat. By slowly bringing up the heat, all of these little crumbled bits of chorizo are going to become golden brown and crunchy. I'm not adding any oil at this stage. I'll wait to see how much fat is released from the chorizo, then I may add a tablespoon at the end. Okay, so the last little bits, just tearing that away. You can start to hear the sizzle now, so it's slowly coming up to heat. And now I'm just going to give that a quick toss. I'll now add 1 clove of garlic that I'll bruise first and just roughly chop. This is just to accentuate the flavour in the chorizo sausage. And I like to add my garlic now as opposed to at the beginning, because if I add it at the beginning, what will happen is it'll burn. We want it just to cook gently and become golden with the chorizo. So in with the smoked paprika. And now I'll add just a gentle glug of extra virgin olive oil. And no salt, because the chorizo sausage is salty enough. Now while that's gently cooking away, I can get onto the garnish for this. Pickled onion. It's just going to give it a real freshness and some zinginess. So 1 Spanish onion, and I'm using my mandolin here to cheat, but you can of course just finely slice it. I like the idea of getting this paper thin. So 1 onion, and be very careful if you're going to use a mandolin. You do not want to cut your fingers on it, so take your time doing it and then finely slice. Perfect. Look at those gorgeous rounds. That's what I'm after. That just looks so delightful. Now I'm just going to separate the rounds and I'll add a generous pinch of salt. And that'll release some of the moisture in the onions, scrunch the onion together to release some of the liquid. And now I'll add a tablespoon of sherry vinegar. I like sherry vinegar. It's very Spanish and it's got quite a sweet flavour to it. So again, another mix, and that's our quick onion pickle. So now all we need to do is wait for our sweet potato to cook and cool, because they'll be too hot to handle. And also this chorizo is looking good. Maybe a few more minutes, then I'll also cool this down slightly. The sweet potato have cooled, so they're easy to handle now. And this is exactly what will happen. See how the skin has detached from the flesh? And I can feel how soft they are in the centre. Now, just using a sharp paring knife, I'm going to cut a slit down the centre without going all the way through, because we want to keep the jackets intact. And just take it off the paper and then just press it gently to open up. Look at that glorious flesh in the centre. That is why I love cooking jacket potatoes with sweet potatoes. It's just so dramatic. I'm going to take majority of this flesh out, and what I like to do is just scoop it directly into our chorizo sausage. So just using a spoon, we'll just take this out, and we want to do this for the rest of them. So scooping out the flesh, see how tender it is, but leaving a little on the base, because that is going to hold all of this mixture again. So carefully do this. I'll place this back onto the tray, and I'll continue doing this with the rest of the sweet potatoes. Okay, so you can see how much flesh we've been able to take out of these sweet potatoes. And now I'll add just a small amount of sherry vinegar just to reinforce that flavour. And some cheese. It's not a jacket potato without some cheese. So cheddar cheese, a generous handful. Now with a fork, I'm going to press down on the sweet potato and mix everything together. This in itself is absolutely delicious, but they're even better once they've been baked again in the jacket. So carefully lift the little jacket up and we're going to fill it up. So a few spoonfuls, pressing it in, and I'll place that back onto its tray. Squish it together just to form the sweet potato shape. And now I'll sprinkle on some extra cheese over the top. All right, I'm going to continue making these. Then they go back into the oven, 180 degrees for about 15 minutes or until all that cheese is melted. Bubbling, gooey, exactly how I love my jacket potatoes. And just to finish them off, I love the addition of sour cream. You could also use yogurt, but I like the tartness of the sour cream. So a small dollop on each. Just scoop that off and just let it melt away. You have to serve these when they're still piping hot and that cheese is gooey. And then don't forget those vinegary onions. See how dramatic it looks with the colour contrast. I just love the addition of this. And you can put as much or as little as possible. And then the last little garnish is some smoked paprika, just a small sprinkle over the top. What makes these jacket potatoes so special is the contrast, sweetness from the sweet potato, saltiness and zinginess that we get from the chorizo and the onions, an absolute delight.